All right, so let's look at these when we're multiplying decimals by decimals using the standard algorithm. The most common mistake when multiplying decimals is putting our decimal point in the wrong place. Putting our decimal point in the wrong place. Now, obviously, we also have to be able to multiply correctly. But if we look at this, I can figure out one way to figure out what my decimal would go. And that one way, figuring out where my decimal could go, would be by estimating. I can estimate, and that'll give me the whole number. So the number that needs to be in front of the decimal point. It's very similar to that activity you had yesterday. Yesterday you were given the numbers that are in the answer, and you just had to place the decimal point where it went. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 16 and 1/10 and make it 16. I'm going to take 9 and 5/10 and make it 10. Why? Because I can do that in my head very easily. That's 160. And the zeros in the ones place. So my decimal point goes there. Now, why is this important? Because my actual product, I need to place the decimal point in a location that gives me the answer closest to 160. So I have to actually do the math. What? And when I'm doing the math, I don't need to put the decimal point in it. When I do the math, I don't need to put the decimal point in it until I find the answer. Once I find the answer, then I can put the decimal point in it. 5 times 1, 5 times 6 is 30, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10's place, 9, 54, 5, 9, and 5 is 14, 5, 9, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5, 1. All right, my estimate is 160. So the number I put in front of my decimal point, which is the whole number, needs to be close to 160. If I put my decimal point here, my whole number is 1. Because that would be what's in front of the decimal point. If I put my decimal point here, my whole number would be 15. Not close to 160. If I put my decimal point here, my whole number would be 152. Pretty close to 160. If I put my decimal point here, my whole number is 1,529. Not very close to 160. If I put my decimal point here, my whole number would be 15,295. Definitely not close to 160. So using the estimate, that tells me I want to be close to 160. The decimal point would go to make right here to make my answer, my product, close to 160. Yes, ma'am.
There's also another way to do it.
I was just about to cover that. The other way to do it. The other way to do it. Now, this is a good way because you always want to do your problems more than once so you can check it. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. The other way to do it is to count in the problem how many numbers are behind the decimal point. This factor has 1. This factor has 1. There are 2 numbers behind the decimal point in my problem. There has to be 2 numbers behind it in my answer. So that are the 2 different ways to do it. 1, estimation. So you can estimate first and then check it by figuring out how many numbers are behind the decimal point here. Okay, so that is that problem. Now something I want to talk about. We're multiplying 1 6/10 by 3/10. You may have been taught at some point in your life when you multiply, every single time it gets bigger. That is not a fact. That is a falsehood. It did until we started multiplying decimals, it worked. It did until we start multiplying fractions, it worked. But if I took 1 6/10 and I multiplied it by 1, what would my answer be?
18.
No, by 1.
Oh, 3.
1 6/10 times 1.
1 6/10.
1 6/10. If I multiplied 1 6/10 by something bigger than 1, my answer is going to be bigger than 1 6/10. If I multiply 1 6/10 by something smaller than 1, my answer is going to be less than 1 6/10. So if I multiply by something smaller than 1, my answer is going to be less than what it is. So when I'm finished solving this problem, my answer should be less than 1 6/10. Let's check. Again, I'm going to do this problem without the decimal points. Just 16 times 3, and I'll put the decimal point in my answer at the end. 6 times 3 is 18. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Oh, I didn't estimate. I know it should be less than 1. Okay? If I put my decimal point here, is my answer going to be less than 1?
Yes.
Yes. If I put it here, is my answer going to be less than 1?
No.
No, it's greater than 4. If I put it here, my answer is 48, which is not less than 1. So it probably goes there. What I did when I estimated, I can go back here. There are 2 numbers behind the decimal point in the problem. There needs to be 2 numbers behind it in the answer. Okay, so that assignment you had to do yesterday, it already gives you the answer. All you're doing is putting the decimal point where it goes. So if you just multiply the 2 whole numbers together, it's going to make it real obvious where the decimal point goes. Does that make pennies? Awesome sauce. Awesome sauce.